welcome to the Exit Only Theater podcast. We're back!
Yay!
We're returning from a bit of a hiatus. I guess we'll get into that. I mean, I'm JP Lee, and with me as always...
Adrian Alderette.
Alright, Adrian, how's it going? What have you been up to?
Terrible. I got kicked out of my house. I've been living on the street, and yeah.
Where have I been? Jesus!
I know, man. It's crazy. I haven't shaved in months. Even though it's only been 1 month.
He looks like an extra in The Revenant.
Yeah, like it's crazy. It's a life story. It's like a guy who goes out in the wilderness. I'm going on too long.
What if I told you?
Yeah, but no, we took a month off for whatever reasons. Mm-hmm. You know, we had our own things going on.
Some work remotes, some other projects came up, so things have been busy.
Yeah, but we're glad to be back. We're glad you guys are still listening.
Absolutely.
Please, I'm glad you guys were keeping up with the page. We're getting a lot more traffic now. And a lot more haters. So
that means we're doing something right.
We're doing something right, but you know who you are. Go screw yourself. You know.
Your opinion doesn't matter to us. On that note, let's jump into this week's latest news. So we've got a bit of a ground to cover.
Yeah, we have a lot of ground to cover.
We have some casting info, who's in, who's out, who's been deemed the next guy in, sort of, I guess is the way to say it. Some news of an alien variety. And we discussed just what the hell Sam Smith was thinking when he wrote Spectre's new theme song, Writings on the Wall.
You were the one that brought it up to me, because I completely forgot, because like, maintaining the page, it's like,
right.
Oh, yo, it's out, listen to it. But I didn't listen to it.
Of course, yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm sure it's great, because Skyfall was so awesome.
Skyfall was awesome.
But why was this... How did you feel about it? Based on your face?
Slight side note. Yeah. I have this running gag with my husband that I think that Sam Smith and Adele are the same person because no one has ever seen them in the room together. And they both sing the same genre of music, and they're both wildly successful and fantastic at it.
Same size
That
pants?
being said, this is the one... Sam Smith's lost some weight. The one difference is that she made a fantastic Bond song, and I don't know what the hell I listened to a couple days ago.
You hated it? Oh.
I did not like it. And preface, I'm a bit of a music nerd. I played French horn since I was like 10. So the
bit gets thrown out the window.
Right.
There's like a bit of a music nerd is out the window.
Oh, I'm an extreme nerd.
She's the ambassador to nerddom.
Yeah, it's like French horn and bassoon. It doesn't get more nerdy than that. But, sorry, all my bassoon friends, but I actually have more than one. So, that being said, the song is great, except for him in it. Like, for some reason, his lyrics and his voice, I don't like it. I don't... Oh, it drives me nuts. Take a listen to it, guys. Let me know what you think, because it not that it's too sappy, because I'm okay with a sensitive Bond. Yeah. He just goes falsetto for no reason, and then the song just putters out.
So it's like, it sounds like very, I guess, very soft.
It's like soft emo Bond, and I don't like it. And it's all this, the orchestra behind is just so, like, dramatic and Bond-esque, and he's just like, knew my feelings. And I'm like, no, I can't.
Oh, no.
I can't. I'm out. So I
writings on the wall.
Yeah, I would have rather gone like a Motown version. I feel like honestly, if it fits into the story and like it makes sense in the credits, I'll give it a chance. But as it's face value, listening to it in the car, I was not a fan.
You know what the 007 franchise needs? Michael McDonald.
Based on your impression? Yeah, it's actually not a bad idea.
Writings on the wall.
You look, it's stuck in people's heads.
Good God. Oh, good God. Alright, let's get, like... let's move on. Let's move on to real news.
There is no clear transition from that. Another piece of news that I thought was really interesting, speaking of the casting stuff I spoke to earlier, news broke this weekend that Sigourney Weaver is on board for the latest Ghostbusters, which adds to the list of cameos that are appearing in this film. It's been said that it's a hard reboot, so it's not going to be her playing her original character, which opens the discussion of what she could be doing in it. There's some rumors online saying, what if she plays a ghost? Which I think would be hilarious.
It's a hot ghost.
I mean, come on, that's like the only territory they haven't covered yet.
I know.
I mean, I think that's
Believe
awesome.
me, I've been waiting.
You're like, it hasn't been done right yet. For someone who's looking forward to this movie already, I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Like, at first I was like, oh, you know, I read the news and I saw it, I'm like, that's really exciting. They're bringing back everybody, you know, even though Harold Ramis is no longer with us, everybody else seems to be coming in to make a cameo again, which is awesome. But the disappointing thing is, the original characters are not playing their old characters.
And they apparently are available, so it's kind of weird that they wouldn't have tried.
Yeah,
you know?
just like, they don't have to be a part of the plot. Like, just have them make, like, Peter Venkman just show up and be like, oh, that's cool. Instead,
he's a third act savior or something.
Yeah, like, I read somewhere there's a rumor that, like, he's playing the villain of the movie, and I would not like that. I'm like, it's like, or he's playing a ghost too, and I'm like, if they're all playing ghosts, I think that would be a kind of funny shtick. It'd be like, oh look, this is how old they are.
It's almost a little too throwaway though. Yeah. At the same time, you're like, is that one scene? Like,
yeah, because it's the Ghostbusters. Like,
you have to have
they're
big
original
ghosts.
Ghostbusters.
You have to have big ghosts.
But yeah, I'm gonna hold off till I see, because I know Paul Feig has been kind of hating on the haters. So
There's
I'm like,
been a lot of haters.
Like he told someone recently on Twitter to go F themselves. So
oh my God.
I'm like, you know what?
He's getting a little sick of it.
Yeah, I know. Like, I know it's getting to him. I know it's hard to do that when you're doing a really radical change from going from an all-male cast to an all-female cast. And there's gonna be a lot of fans out there that are quote unquote diehard Ghostbusters fans.
I mean, I'd be pissed if
there's only a handful of movies.
Wasn't done right.
So. Like, this is the thing. Like, it's like saying, oh, I'm a hardcore Evil Dead franchise fan. There's no real franchise. Let's be real. Just because you have a trilogy doesn't mean that you have a franchise.
That's true.
That's it's just like, oh, Bruce Campbell. Oh man, how can he do anything outside of Evil Dead? He's an actor.
Everyone needs to get over it. Sometimes remakes happen. It's okay.
And so my opinion is Ghostbusters, even though like all the films are awesome, it's not a real franchise in my opinion. It's not. It really isn't. Because they made a cartoon, they made all this branding, all this stuff. That's cool, but at the same time, it's like, you're 2 films in, really, if my
technically, in today's universe where they make, they expand upon a universe so much that, like, 2 is just cute in comparison. Yeah. But, I mean, when I was a kid growing up at Universal Studios, Ghostbusters, they had the ride, they had, like, everything. It holds a very strong place in a lot of people's hearts. Yeah. I would be upset if Back to the Future was done incorrectly, so I'm hoping he does this the right way.
That's a legit franchise. I don't mean like
it's
one's
the rule
more...
of 3. I think it's the rule of 3.
It's the rule of 3. You're not a franchise until you're 3, in my opinion.
No,
so
that's fair enough.
That's how I feel, but I'm going to wait and see. But I'm glad that she's back on screen. I'm never going to complain. She's still hot, whatever age she is.
She's awesome. It's fantastic news. You have more casting news, I believe.
Yes, I do, and of course it involves superheroes, because that's obviously my avenue.
You miss it? Come on.
All right. Hugh Jackman recently was speaking with MTV promoting the movie Pan. And they asked him, of course, whenever Hugh Jackman's being interviewed, it's like, what's up with Wolverine? What's up with Wolverine?
Yep.
And they asked him, like, look, your next Wolverine film, the Untitled Wolverine 3 project.
Right.
It's like, this is your last Wolverine. If you were to cast the person that's going to take over the Wolverine character for you, who would it be? And he said, Tom Hardy.
Did he skip a beat? Did he have this already? Like, I'm sure he's already been like, well, who would be my successor?
No, he said it pretty, like, clearly. He's like, look, there's a lot of really good actors out there. He's like, but man, Tom Hardy, I would love to see him in this role. And so I'm curious. I wanted to get your take on it first, because like this is the thing. Like, as a comic book guy, I'm gonna out of the sake of just trying to be open with the casting, I'm not gonna reserve an age limit. At first, if you wanted to have Clint Eastwood be in one Wolverine movie, that's fine. He's in it. But I'm gonna say who, if you were to choose. Well, first of all, how about this? Do you like Tom Hardy as a future Wolverine? And then second, who would you pick?
I don't hate it. Yeah. I'm a little hesitant because I love Tom Hardy. Don't get me wrong. He's in my top 10 of just compelling actors right now. Yeah. He hasn't shown himself to be like fun charismatic. He's crazy charismatic in a lot of roles, like, in the Bronson kind of way. Yeah. And he can do angry and brooding and that kind of thing that Wolverine requires, but I feel like Hugh Jackman brought this levity to the character that may not be honest to the comic books, but was fun, and it made me, like, I cared about Wolverine that much more because Hugh Jackman's version. Yeah. So I feel like going from that to Tom Hardy, I feel like he would take a darker tone, which would be honest to, I'm sure, some of the source material. Yeah. But I'm a little hesitant to want to watch that. I personally think my choice would be Colin Farrell, because he's had a bit of a comeback lately, and I think it would be cool to see him take on something like that. Yeah. And I'm sure he could wear the mutton chops pretty well. So. Oh
yeah, the guy's a hairy individual, so I'm pretty sure
that was my
growing hair won't be a problem for him. As you can see with me, it's not that hard.
Yeah, you should do that.
Like Tom Hardy, look, first of all, I'll say, awesome, be Wolverine. I think he's awesome, but he's not necessarily my first choice, and the reason being, like, outside of, I know this is kind of blasphemy because I'm a huge Tom Hardy guy. He's kind of been sucking lately. I'll make that extreme because
he's played parts that haven't required him to stretch as much as he should.
And it's just like there's times where I watch him act and I'm like, you can tell he's acting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's stoic, but it's like
like when you see for instance, like the roles that I really like him in, obviously Bronson, and you watch something like even as subtle as Bane. Like, he was really good, and he was really reserved, and he did all this stuff, but then you watch something like Child 44. Right. And then, I see the trailers, I haven't seen the movie, but I see the trailers for Legend, where he plays 2 parts, where he plays the twin brothers. You could see it again. And I'm like, for me, I'm like...
It feels a little one note. Yeah. It's kind of strange.
It's just like, to me, I'm like, like obviously acting, it's judging an actor is subjective, but to me, I'm like when I watch him, I'm like, dude, you're I can tell you're acting.
Yeah, it's just distracting. So who would your choice be?
So if it were my choice, I think Joel Edgerton, his co-star in A Warrior.
Warrior love.
The thing is, like, he's one of the most underrated actors in Hollywood, and we just saw him in Black Mass, which we'll talk about later. He was terrific in it. He was awesome in Exodus, even though that movie was kind of subject.
He's good in everything he's in.
He's good in
never the
everything.
reason why a movie sucks.
And I like, and you kind of could, you saw the physicality, at least physically, when he was in Warrior. You know he could put on some weight. You know he could be athletic. And then you could see when he's kind of like this reckless, angry guy in something like The Great Gatsby.
Yeah, I loved him in that.
That
movie's
terrific.
flawed, but I love that.
He's really good in it. And I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, this guy could really, I think he could do anything.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
if you put him in, again, like, stature-wise, not that tall. So, like, ideally speaking, like, when you go to the comics, he's not that tall either.
Yeah.
He's bulky.
That's true.
He's
Hugh
hairy.
Jackman is excessively taller than the character.
And the guy looks like a Wolverine. Like, the eyes look like... No, I mean that like in a positive way. He does
have sort of like an animalistic, like, almost a cat-like look to him,
So I think he'd be perfect. He's, like, by far one of my favorite actors. I'm looking forward to him being more stuff.
That's a very solid pick.
But yes, what is our next bit of news?
Little Men in Black trilogy.
Yeah, this is right.
I'm going to jump into that for us.
Yeah, basically, everybody who knows Men in Black, Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones, made it a really fun franchise, and
awesome.
I still love it.
I even like the third one. Yeah.
Third one was terrific, but recently, the Hollywood Reporter spoke to producers of the film, Walter Parks and Laurie McDonald, during the Toronto International Film Festival, and they asked them like, "Hey, what's going on?" Like, since Sony has been going through some issues, like, "Hey, what's going on with Men in Black?"
It's a big property for you.
Yeah, it's a big property. What's going on? And this is kind of like the back and forth that they had. He says, "Has there been talk about renewing the franchise with the new Sony regime? Since Amy Pascal is no longer involved. Right. She was the head of the stuff when the Sony emails, that Sony hack leak."
Yep.
Parks responded, "We're in the middle of it. It's very active." The Hollywood Reporter responds, "Is Will Smith going to be a part of it?" Parks responds, "Most likely no." McDonald also continues, "It will be reinvented as a trilogy." So in sum, they said that they're rebooting Men in Black, and not only Will Smith, but everyone else is not going to be involved. Personally, to answer first, I think this is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. The thing is, like we said before, just a while ago, it's like, oh, what makes a franchise? Oh, if you have a trilogy.
Right.
And I was speaking before we started the podcast, we were bouncing notes around. Why is it that when you have a trilogy, right when you reach number 3, it's like, okay, let's start anew? Why can't you just keep going? Just keep going. Like, this is the thing, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Will Smith, if you watch the third one, if you haven't, I recommend watching it. It's really very fun. It captures what's fun about Men in Black.
Yeah.
And, like, the first one is great. The second one, it's not.
It's got its faults.
It has its faults.
Still entertaining.
Rosario Dawson does her job. It's fun. But I really like the third one.
It was a return to form for the
So it's like, and that one doesn't necessarily close off to saying, oh, we're not doing anything anymore again. And you saw with that one, you could go back in time. You could literally do anything with the storyline.
Yeah.
So why is it that, like, oh, let's just reboot for the sake of rebooting?
I think it comes down to just the cast's age. I don't know. Not that Will Smith's too old for the part, but Tommy Lee Jones is pushing, almost 70? I mean, he's in his late 60s. I don't know that he would even be interested in doing more of these roles. Like, I mean, that's pure speculation. I'm not sure. I've never, heard
No, you're probably right.
I haven't heard articles or anything about it, but it just seems like the longer you go, I mean, the first film's almost 20 years old, so the longer you go, it might be that part where, in the beginning of the first one, when Tommy Lee Jones's partner has to, move out to pasture, time to move on. Where he sort of tries to do that at the end of the first one. It feels like he actually just genuinely would need to do that in the quote-unquote fourth one if they were to do it. That's the only thing I'd see, is that they don't want to work with the cast anymore.
My assumption, and another thing that hasn't been said, is that maybe the producers are doing this just because they see Will Smith as no longer the box office magnet that he used to be. He
currently is not.
He's
not. Yeah, it's true.
But at the same time, it's like, just because a lot of people aren't going to see a movie because of him doesn't mean that people still don't like him when he's on screen.
Right.
Like the last Men in Black, he's really enjoyable. He is the only person that you're following in that movie.
Yeah.
And I was able to watch it from beginning to end and never think, oh God, more Will Smith isms or anything like that. He's still a fun, charismatic guy. The reason studios aren't as fond of him anymore is because, one, he's expensive, and two, fans that are now grown up are kind of just like, oh yeah, you know, Will Smith, we get you, you know, you're funny. But our generation still likes him.
There's a nostalgia. I mean, if you grew up in the 90s, Will Smith's the guy. He's the man. Like,
he's the man. So I think this thing, like, Will Smith can kind of transition into, if you're going to redo the story, transition to him being the Tommy Lee Jones character now.
Yeah.
And then have the new guy, like Channing Tatum, just show up and be the new kind of gunslinger kind of guy.
Or the kid from Kingsman being like a straight edge, like by the book kid, and Will Smith's doing it he's still doing it his own way. It's kind of a fun twist on it.
It would be fun. It's just like, why do you have to reboot something just because you think it's not failing? So
it's just they have to skew younger. I think that's really what it is, which sucks.
Man,
I don't know. I don't like it either. But
all right, the next bit of news is my favorite thing because it is alien related.
Yes. Okay, I don't even know how to get started with this.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. Actually, you know what? Launch a little bit into what was originally said, and then I'll get into one of the more recent articles.
All right, so basically, we're talking about the Alien franchise, and which we'll go into in a little bit, is also the other part of it, which is the Prometheus franchise.
Two independent, dependent franchises.
Yeah, where they're all under the same umbrella, but let's say like they're two cousins that they're not talking to each other.
There you go.
Basically, Ridley Scott, since he's promoting the movie The Martian with Matt Damon, they've been asking him, hey, you know, what's going on with Prometheus 2? You know, when is it going to be shot? And he came out and was like, oh, we're shooting that next. We're shooting in February. And they're like, oh, you know, when are you going to, when are you going to tie back into the Alien franchise? Are we see more xenomorphs, which are like the monsters from the movie? And he went on to say, like, as far as regarding when it'll link back to the Alien storyline, he says, yes, it won't, but it won't be in the next one. It'll be in the one after this one, or maybe even a fourth before we even get back into the Alien franchise. The whole point of it is to explain the Alien franchise and to explain the how and why of the creation of the alien itself. I always thought of the alien as a kind of piece of bacterial warfare. I always thought of that original ship, which I call the Croissant, because it's shaped like a croissant.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, was a battleship holding all these biomechanoid creatures that were all about destruction. So it's like, just to sum up this quote, basically what he's saying is like, look, we're eventually going to get linked back to the Alien franchise, but not right now. Maybe later, as in fourth film later. But it's funny because there's another bit of news. Recently, the title for the movie was released. And, Jen, what was the name of that title?
Alien. Paradise Lost.
So he says, we're not linking it to Alien, but we're linking it to Alien.
It's literally called Alien.
Because when you name that, so it's titled Alien Paradise Lost.
Yes.
I love the title. I don't think we need the byline, but I think that was the studio saying, hey, just remind people.
Specific. Yeah. Exactly.
So just to link it back to the franchise, to give it, you know, the good old McDonald's slap on the thing. It's like, it's not just a Whopper. I mean, a Big Mac. It's the McDonald's Big Mac.
Exactly.
But I guess, what's your first? Let's break this down into little bits. What's your take on him not linking it to the Alien franchise right away? At least not from the title.
Okay, essentially he's saying he's not, but then more recent information suggests that he might be. He's not essentially painting a clear picture for me, which is frustrating because I went along for the ride that was Prometheus and all its faults and just, I mean, subject errors and miscommunication. I mean, the plot was ridiculous at times. Like, I loved Prometheus because I was like, okay, he's gonna take us somewhere in the second one. Like, I had every piece of faith that like that was gonna go somewhere, and now it just feels like as production is getting closer and closer to starting, which it alleges they're gonna start production in February of next year.
Yeah.
As the time approaches, it feels like he's allowing the studio to tell him, hey, we should start to connect these a little bit more, because his conversation is like, well, because we're heading back to why and how and when the beast was invented, we'll go back into the back door of the very first Alien I did 30 years ago. That's explaining how the xenomorph origins will be better explained in Paradise Lost. So I'm like, so are you going to do it or are you not going to do it? Like, just I don't need to know the plot, but I need to know what I'm going in for, because I don't want to just see another stepping stone to something better in 3 and 4. I just want to know that he knows where he's going, and that troubles me.
And I'm right there with you. Like, I really loved. I'll go ahead and say I loved Prometheus.
Yeah, me too.
I thought it was awesome.
Forgave every fault it had.
You know, well, like that's a movie we could talk about like for endless hours. But since we're talking about like the continuation of it, I'm excited for it, and I'm excited that Ridley Scott's the one helming it. The only thing that I'm kind of like iffy about is just is the fact that you have, and it's been announced that Neil Blomkamp was also directing the Alien 5.
Right.
He was directing the next Alien movie. but then it's like you have Alien 5 going on,
completely dissimilar.
And Prometheus. And technically, like, if you're going to go the Star Wars route, you can technically tell both stories, but you can see why the studio's like, that's going to confuse the viewer when you're going in the future and the past at the same time.
Of course.
Like, this is one thing if it's Star Wars where you have a clear episode 1, 2, or 3, or 4.
Right, we don't know where they're going.
We have no idea where in the timeline this is going. So, in my opinion, like, if I were to pick one or the other, I'm glad the studio is siding with Ridley Scott and saying, look, just do what you're doing. We know, like, Prometheus, even though it wasn't necessarily like widely received well, people still went out to see it.
It actually was a pretty big hit.
Yeah.
Critically, it was kind of beaten down.
It was kind of like either you liked it or you didn't.
Well,
I'm excited.
I have a quote for you. That I was skimming the article and I actually just reread this and didn't notice it the first time. He said in a quote, "I've even got connections with Ripley in this movie, but I'm not telling you what." So I'm trying to... How...
Okay, see, I didn't know that.
What are you going to do? I don't understand. So you have a 2, a 3, and a 4, and then an 8? Like, where are these going to fit? I'm so stressed out.
I think what's going to happen... This is just... honestly, I didn't know that quote going into the show.
I didn't see it until just now.
I think what's going to happen... I think he's doing his best... Marvel impersonation, where he's just like, maybe we'll hit into it. Yeah, he's like, I don't know, maybe we'll see Thanos, maybe we won't see Thanos, maybe an alien will pop out of a stomach, maybe not. Maybe...
So you're telling me nothing's gonna happen until the bonus scene after the credits?
Exactly. It's like you can't. I think the only thing that you can really link to, like with Ripley, is just that the ship is on the radar, whatever ship that they were on.
That's true.
That's it. But then, yeah, it's just, I'm not going to get into the whole, like, what takes place on what timeline.
He's inviting you to do so, which is annoying.
Yeah. But I'm just saying this. I'm glad Ridley is back into sci-fi full-time.
Yep.
I'm glad he's just strictly...
Ripley and Ridley.
And we talked about this before, like, the show. I'm glad he's doing it, and I'm glad that he's doing it the way he's doing it. And the way he's doing it is that... And I think this is what kind of like handcuffed the franchise of Alien was that it's like, oh, Alien was a hit. Let's continue. It always has to have an alien creature, and it always has to have Ripley.
He's more enticed by the world with which he's created. Which I think is really interesting.
He's creating a universe.
Actually, one more thing he said is that the planet it was on, I think we're referring to where he's going next with the film. And I was looking at the dark side of the moon, quote unquote, would be called paradise. Paradise is a very ominous word, which I'm like, that's so like very similar to what he said in the first one, or what the executive producer said with what if God turned out to be the devil? Like these themes are incredibly enticing. I'm just hoping that there is a very streamlined plot to go along with it.
I think so too, and even if the plot isn't necessarily as specific, because Prometheus wasn't very specific.
No.
But I think if they. And I know the writer Damon Lindelof. I don't think he's even on board for this.
I would have to check. I don't think so though.
But
he's got a lot of other things going on.
He has a lot of good things going on. But I'm just glad that the main guy is kind of the main guy in charge is the one making the decisions.
Yeah.
So I trust Ridley Scott with this particular property. I trust the way he's going with it, where it's just like he sees the alien only as a tool, not necessarily as
the driving vehicle.
As a driving vehicle.
Agreed.
So it's a movie that I remember when I went to see it a couple summers ago was awesome.
Yeah.
So
I did leave the theater almost angry, but I liked the emotion. I'm like, what did I just watch?
Like,
this is awesome.
A lot of people were upset with me because I remember after the movie, the reaction people had just to get really quickly over it. Everybody was silent. Everybody kind of like looked around.
They didn't know what to make of it.
They didn't know what to make of it,
refreshing.
And I thought it was exciting. For me, I was like, and like a couple people were like, oh, you don't like, because I went on Facebook after that and I posted, I'm like, this is what it must have felt like when people went to see 2001, Space Odyssey.
Yeah, it's also dangerous to say that like a movie like Prometheus is as revolutionary as 2001.
No, that's what pissed people off. That's what pissed people off, and like a lot of my
similar.
Yeah, like a lot of my film buddies were like, dude, you don't even know what you're talking about, and all this stuff. I'm not saying that it's like that.
Hipsters,
I'm just saying,
calm down.
Yeah, I'm like, hipster brother, and calm down. I've been anointed a hipster, but like that's a whole other thing. But yeah, like I think like the reaction to it was very similar, where it was based off a theme.
Yeah.
Even though 2001 was much more specific in what theme it wanted to go at, Prometheus
brought
brought out that theme of like, hey, what if we met our inventor? And we found out
such a great guy.
And it wasn't such a great guy. And the reason for that, we have no reason necessarily besides that, we did it, we made you because we could.
Right.
And that's really depressing.
The idea of that just like,
there's no meaning to it. But yes.
So existential.
I think we're unanimous in that we're excited. And
yes.
as you should be. So hopefully we can get into that when it comes out.
Absolutely.
All right. What is next?
I think we should take a little time to do a little bit of a summer recap of sorts, including September, since we missed sort of the entire month.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that we had a crazy busy summer. There's been a lot of really good movies, a few misses. I think there have been a lot of solid performances, but I think what we need to boil down to is sort of discussing our favorite blockbusters, some disappointments, some surprises. I think if we get into the broader discussion, I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah.
The first topic, let's kick it off with a bang. Favorite summer movie, September included. So favorite blockbuster of sorts.
All right, my favorite summer movie, and this is the thing, like.
This was difficult.
This is a fun segment because, like, as you like to point out, this is kind of like my season.
It is.
It's my season. Even though I love Oscar movies. We're getting into
mine, which is
like we're getting into yours, which is Oscar season. Mine is kind of like the really, like, I guess, visually ambitious movies, if that's like the safe way to put it.
Yeah. It validates them a bit more.
The ones that rape the senses. Let's just say, all right.
Yeah.
My favorite movie of the summer, including September, was one that I saw just early this week.
Ooh. And
you know what it was? It was an advanced screening of Sicario.
Ooh, he's not going with a blockbuster. This is interesting.
Yeah, I'm
glad you're talking about it, though, because I was not available for that screener.
I know.
So I actually have a few questions for you, but when you get into it...
and I'll say this. I originally, before, I remember when we were making the show notes that you mentioned... Like, originally we were not going to include September. Right. And it was like, all right, what was your favorite summer movie? And I was like, oh, Jurassic World. Like, that was, like, you and I agree that was fun. When we went in there, we were both surprised of how exciting it was. Yeah. But then when we opened it to September, and I know, like, a lot of film people are like, oh, September doesn't really count. It's, like, technically the transitional period.
It counts as much as April now does. So.
Yeah, that's right. And so the way I see it is that Sicario... not only was the best movie of the summer, it was also the best movie I've seen this year.
Which is saying something. There's been some good movies.
There's been some really great movies.
I can't wait to see this.
And you know how critical I am of everything that everybody thinks is good.
Yeah, I'm surprised you love this as much.
I loved it, and I'm going to see it again. I just literally got another screening to watch this Wednesday.
Nerd alert.
But yeah, I just, from top to bottom, the way it was shot, the story, the performances, every little thing was done with such great care, and it was done with just the right precision. And it was, when you watch it, when eventually everyone and you watch it, you're going to notice that it's very relaxed in how it's shot, where it's lets the actors act.
But it's still very intentional.
But it's very intentional. Every angle was there for a reason.
That's really cool.
And it was exciting from beginning to end.
It's great to see a director not get in the way of his own material. Yeah. My question, I have a few questions for you.
Go right ahead.
If you don't mind. I want to guide a little bit of this conversation.
I give this movie, by the way, if I were to rate it like out of 5, I would give this a 5 out of 5. I honestly think this should be Oscar.
That's incredible. And you specifically go out of your way not to rate movies. So for you to like put your stamp of approval,
like,
I have to run and see it.
I can't stress it enough. This was the best movie I've seen this year.
That's incredible. In a pretty crowded sea of good movies so far. A few questions for you.
Sure.
First of all, I've been a self-described Emily Blunt fan for years now.
Oh, yeah.
So, how amazing was she? Is she the best action star that isn't actually an action star yet? On a scale of 1 to Sigourney Weaver, where does she live on the badass leading lady meter?
You asked every question imaginable.
Yes, she's awesome. That's a great answer.
She was terrific in the movie. But in the movie, even though she is, like, her role as a FBI agent is badass, she isn't necessarily someone that knows what's going on.
Okay.
So she's very, not necessarily vulnerable, but she's very confused about what's going on.
She's like the lens through which we're seeing it.
Yes, exactly. Cool. We're walking through with her, where we're like entering this kind of circumstance and situation that's going on with the cartels versus the United States and the whole drug trafficking game, and we're seeing it through her eyes. And she does it in such a way that she knows her job is, like, because you could have went the route of Traffic and said, oh God, what a terrible world.
Right.
Like, look at how this effect on the character and all this stuff. That's the cliche route to go, even though it's a very compelling route. The way they decided to go was through the agent, through the actual trying to figure out what to do to actually make things right.
Which is interesting. So that actually gives me another question that I sort of already have written down here. Is did the film say anything other than, hey, the borders are dangerous? Like, was it just, and that's fine if that's all it was. Like, was it just painting a picture of something that's really going on nowadays, or did it have something else saying? Like, a little bit of both. This is the thing. Like, it said, one of the things that it was trying to say was, yes, right now the way that it has to be fought is at an extreme. Okay. But the extreme that they go at, and the way the U.S. government's depicted in going at, is kind of shocking. Where when you find out, like, there is a twist, a slight twist, but you see it coming throughout the entire film, is I appreciate you not telling.
No, yeah, I'm not gonna spoil it because I really want people to see this, and it's very satisfying when you find out.
Cool.
It goes to show you kind of like in the Dark Knight kind of style way, and a kind of like in the same subtext where it's like when the world is as bad as it is around you, sometimes being the good guy isn't enough.
I love that theme, too.
Yeah.
It's very relevant nowadays.
And I think that's what the film was trying to get at.
Yeah.
Right or wrong, it's what's necessary.
Yeah.
So I thought that was an excellent theme.
That's interesting.
Because those are the kind of, not only the characters, but also the very subtext. I just find it interesting where it's like, you don't necessarily, where you kind of, you have to jeopardize your morals in a certain way and your beliefs to accomplish what you need to accomplish.
It complicates the matter, which is interesting.
And so I think it's awesome. And as going back to answer your other question, from one to Sigourney Weaver, like where does Emily Blunt rank? She shows the action vulnerability that she hasn't shown yet. So I think she's becoming, like, this is the thing, like, if you want to go watch Edge of Tomorrow and then you watch this one, she's the full range action star.
Which is awesome, because that doesn't usually happen with a lot of actors.
Because she's not in a lot of action scenes in this film. That's the thing. When you watch this, going into this movie, you're gonna assume, oh, she's gonna be tactical. She's gonna be tactical. No, there's a lot going on emotionally in this movie. And there's a scene in particular where she kind of like thinks she lets her guard down, and then
something happens.
Something is shown, and you're just like, she can't lie down. She can't lie down ever. Wow. And now, is she going to be a part of it throughout the entire way, or is she going to jump ship and maybe put her life at risk? We'll see.
It's really interesting. It interests me because I already love Emily Blunt, so that makes me want to see the movie. That being said, on the other side, I know that when we talked about this in your initial reaction, I wanted to bring it up again. My question to you is, I know that Benicio del Toro seems to be getting the kind of love he's deserved since The Usual Suspects. Yeah. Is there award season buzz around this performance? Are you looking at this year's Michael Keaton? This
is the thing, like, of the movies we've seen this year, there haven't really been, like, guaranteed awards-worthy performances outside of Alicia Vikander in Ex Machina.
Okay.
That was, like, my favorite performance of the year. And then next after that is Benicio del Toro.
Really?
This is the thing, like, there are going to be a lot of comparisons made to his role in Traffic because it's very similar, but
on the surface
it's very similar. But I thought the way he played it, this guy, like when you watch this movie, you forget that you're just like, man, this guy is one of the best out there.
Yeah,
he's one of those guys that only does these art house films once ever so often.
He's kept under the radar.
He's always been under the radar, and even after Traffic, it was like, oh, what can he do next? It's just like he does his own thing.
Yeah. He steals scenes in every movie he's in, but for some reason he still remains kind of in the background. It's weird.
He is the good version of Johnny Depp, where he's able, not necessarily into makeup, but he could be these eccentric guys, like the guy in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah.
And then he could go on and be the guy in Traffic. And then he could go on and be the guy here. It's like, there's no drop-off.
He does have a crazy range.
He has a crazy range. He's a very intelligent actor, and in this movie, it's just, he is so badass. This is the thing, like, it's hard to just describe it and not say badass when you watch it.
Right.
Because he's a straight up cold, stone cold kind of character.
I was as excited to see Emily Blunt in it, but now I'm even more excited to see him because I don't get to see him in like bigger roles like this. Like he was in the Paul Thomas Anderson movie recently.
Inherent Vice, yeah.
And the scenes he was in, I was captivated. He wasn't even that compelling of a character. No. It was just something about him, like, you're mesmerized by him on screen, so I'm excited to see him.
The way I'll describe his character is that if Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men, which is Javier Bardem's character, if there was one guy that you could call John Wick, James Bond, or Benicio del Toro's character in Sicario to take him out, the only guy that'd be able to do it would be Benicio del Toro's
Which
character.
Fits into that blurred lines of, like, what lines is he willing to cross to get the bad guy.
This guy is so freaking good, man. It blew me away. It's a very, like, when you watch the movie, it's not that dense of a film.
Yeah.
But it's just, everything is just, there's no wasted movement.
It's
you
cool.
watch it, and you're just like, if you're a fan of cinematography, Roger Deakins is doing it, and you're just like, there's one shot where he uses silhouettes, I'm like, fuck you, man. I'm like, God dang, man.
It sounds like a complete film. I'm really looking forward to it.
It's awesome. It has everything that I love. So,
I'm glad that I'm on the other side of this for once and able to ask questions as a viewer who's never seen it. It's kind of refreshing.
I like being on this side. I know. I feel like I'm in jail all over again.
Being interrogated. There's a glass wall between us. I will keep mine short, but I will keep with my damn ties because I like to do tiebreakers.
What was your favorite summer film?
My tie between the two. There are some honorable mentions. Mad Max was incredible. Spy I thought was surprisingly really funny.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm the only one that liked that movie as much as
not a lot of people saw it that I know.
I freaking love that movie. I dragged my parents to it. I made my husband's family see it. They didn't love it as much, but loved it. Anyway, my
divorce. Go on.
My tiebreakers would be Jurassic World, just for pure nostalgia.
Yeah. And
for me, a movie that's grown on me as I've thought about it as time has passed is Inside Out. I mean, that movie, I know the critics, it's a critical darling and everyone... That movie, to me, I almost bought a Bing Bong coffee cup the other day. I'm like, that is not the demographic that they should be appealing to. But between the two films, it appeals to actually very similar themes of nostalgia and sort of what makes you you. And for me, dinosaurs from the 90s is, like, most of my childhood.
Dinosaurs!
So I very much appeal to that. Like, the sequence of the T-Rex, to me... at the end of that movie is as nostalgic as seeing anything that the themes in Inside Out carry.
We were sitting next to each other, and I was just like, when we saw that, I think we both guys were like, oh!
I watched it again, and it allowed me to, like, actually tear up the second. Because the first time I'm like, I can't cry in front of Adrian. But the second time I'm in there by myself being a weirdo, like, tearing up. I'm like, it's a T-Rex, look at the scars. Like, I was just, like, so excited.
That's awesome.
So that's just for me as a pure moviegoer. I know that the film is actually, it's not a film, it's a movie. It's like one of those, like...
It's a popcorn movie.
Yeah, it's got flaws. I don't care.
There's nothing wrong with that. That's the thing, like, just because a movie isn't Oscar-worthy doesn't make it not a good movie.
Yeah, it's my top 10 movies. Like, 4 or 5 of them will never get invited to the Oscar ceremony.
Like, Kevin Trevorrow, keep your comments to yourself, but, hey, you did a good job, man. You did a good job.
Don't talk about my lady counterparts, I guess would be the good thing.
Bryce Dallas Howard. Yeah.
So, yeah, Jurassic World and Inside Out are my two picks.
Right. Inside Out, I just want to say one thing about Inside Out.
Yeah.
It's like, you forget about it now since we're so past the summer now.
It's been a while.
It's been a while. I would not be surprised if that's the first animated movie to be nominated for an Oscar and maybe even have a chance for winning.
Well, it wouldn't be the first, but it would definitely have the strongest chance of winning.
That one was very from a level that script is so complex.
And the thing that Pixar does, and I can launch into craziness, but like not only do they have an almost perfect story, but like the animation, they like invented new techniques. They do it in like every movie, like Finding Nemo's water. I mean, Sully's hair in Monsters Inc. This one, they like invented fuzzy. Like I've never seen like blurry, like tangible. I felt like I could touch it. Like it was weird. I'm like
because
watching.
We saw it in IMAX, I believe, 3D.
I think we did, and even if we didn't, like you would still see, like you would feel, you'd want to touch the screen. It's crazy to me. So
just the lady in front of me would get very scared.
Which, considering it's like emotions and like it's like your senses, it's just very. It all comes together. I love that movie.
But with a favorite also comes disappointment. All right, so. What is our next topic?
Biggest disappointment of the summer, September included. I have to keep saying that. Okay.
So I guess I will start this off.
Okay.
Because I think yours is more fun.
Okay.
My biggest disappointment is Jake Gyllenhaal's Southpaw.
I'm with you on that.
That movie, a lot of people that I speak to, we're around, we're all like, oh, I liked it and all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to lie. There's times where I'm like, look, film is subjective, like what you like.
Yeah.
But you're dead wrong on this one. It's like, it just...
And you wonder why people call him a hipster.
Like, it just... I will say that I'm not, like I love boxing movies. I
think that's why. Like, we have the bar so high.
Yeah, I love boxing movies. Mm-hmm. I'm kind of outgrown sports movies as a whole, but I do enjoy boxing movies because it's very individual. Mm-hmm. That being said, this one was... Like, imagine being in, like, an Uber drive on the scenic route of a movie, and that's what it feels like. It's like, oh, look at all this stuff that's happening. We're never going to pull over.
Yeah, you never get to touch it. We're just going to keep going. Yeah, it's a very good analogy.
Yeah, and it's just like, not only are we doing that, we're going to keep making turns, even though, like, the direction to go to is... On the, like it's like, oh, my stop's on the right.
There, yeah.
It's like, oh, we have to just drive straight down this road, and that's my house. It's like, no, we're gonna take a left here, just because look how nice it is. And then we're gonna cut here, and you know what? This is a nice street too. Let's go over here. The reason I didn't like Southpaw was because it was very poorly directed. The director Antoine Fuqua would cut away. He would I can't even say
de-intensify. Yeah,
he would kind of
a scene. Suck the intensity out of the scene.
He would do that by cutting from different angle to angle, and
I know that bothered me too.
It got to the point where it was very distracting, and a lot of people were like, "Oh, well, you read into it too much." I'm like, "Well, I have to. As a viewer, I'm like, I'm paying for this. I want to see something good, and it wasn't entertaining.
See, I go into a movie, I start by saying, like, okay, let me just try to enjoy this. If it's not enjoyable is when I start to break it down, and that's what I was doing in that movie. I was trying to get into that film.
We were wanting to leave, I remember.
Yeah, like 30 minutes in, I'm like, okay, so we have to watch this thing for the review. let me just break down all the things I hate about it. And that's not a good sign. Like, I don't go in that skeptical.
And again, like you said it when we did the review, it was a vehicle for Jake Gyllenhaal, and it was a wasted vehicle.
Yeah, and he was good.
He was terrific, but yet we never really got the chance to see that because our director fell in love with cameras. Too many cameras channel.
Too many cuts.
Yeah.
Too many cuts.
But what was your biggest disappointment?
My biggest disappointment, okay, so originally I was going to say Tomorrowland. Okay. And I had that written down, and I was going to go off on this tangent about Damon Lindelof not knowing how to write scripts. But I decided, you know what, we talked about this before, neither of us hated that movie. It didn't go maybe as far as we wanted it to, and it didn't hit the notes that we wanted it to, but the overall score was there. Like, they knew, they had the right idea. I won't fault them for trying,
It's a guilty pleasure now.
Exactly, and it's a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes for that reason, because half of it's good, half of it's not, and it makes it for, like, an movie.
Yeah.
Not, I would just say that was an honorable mention for this.
Yes.
For me, my biggest disappointment is actually one of the first Oscar bait movies, which was still in September, so I count it as a summer film.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this.
Was Black Mass.
Yes.
So I like the fact that we're talking about Sicario and Black Mass because it's kind of the only movies other than one other that we will talk about later that came out in September that really mattered. Yeah. I mean, there's Scorched Trials, I think was what it's called.
Yeah,
I liked Maze Runner, so I will eventually see that film, but it's not worth discussing right now.
Yeah.
Black Mass had solid performances within an otherwise vanilla movie, and I say that because I actually want to know, was it as disappointing as I perceived it to be? Because I feel like it was actually almost bad.
It was. You're not alone. I think a lot of people who watch this movie agree. Like, it's one of those popcorn drama movies where it's like, oh, let's get this guy in a good performance and get out of the way. And Johnny Depp delivers. He delivers.
Does. I will say that. He is not the reason why I don't like this movie.
He was very scary. They did it in very, very obvious but also very subtle fashion. There were scenes and whatnot that were very effective. But the problem with me, and I think also with you, was it was a collection of scenes just to show how badass he was.
It didn't come together.
It was like the story wasn't there. Like for instance, like I know we complained about why did they start the movie the way they did? Why they show that kid getting his ass kicked?
Right.
And then it's like, oh, okay, like we are introduced to Johnny Depp by seeing him by the peanut sequence, and then nothing happens from it.
Yeah.
I was expecting like a Joe Pesci moment, and nothing happened.
Yeah, it's almost like I feel like in a film like that, you need to set up by like having a moment of extreme violence for him, and then you set up those what if moments with the peanuts. Like you already know if he's capable of that those peanut things could trigger him.
Yeah.
But to start with it, you're like, oh, he's mildly annoyed. Like there was no pretext for you to like feel the fear of that scene.
And we never really, we never really saw him age. Like we spanned over 15 years.
That's another thing. That's
and
a good
he
point.
was the same thing, and I was just like, okay, and then like with the story, like when they were like, oh, let's have this alliance between you and the FBI. That's cool. Then all of a sudden it would fast forward 4 years later, and he's the kingpin of Boston. I'm like, whoa,
not even a montage
like,
or
we couldn't have seen anything that was like how he got there. It was just automatically done.
And it was they were at fault based on their entire premise of their script. This fact that like for me, in Scorsese films, and this is kind of a question I was going to ask, is did Scorsese essentially ruin the mob genre for everyone else because he made those movies so much fun? And I mean that with like a grain of salt, because obviously we don't want to be mob bosses, but you watch a movie like The Departed or Goodfellas or even Casino, you live vicariously through that film because you know you'll never be a part of that life. That's
an interesting way to put it. Yeah, because like like before the show, I remember you asked me that, and I thought about it. I'm like, no, he didn't ruin it. But then I think about it now.
He's made it very
There
hard.
haven't been very many great gangster films the way Scorsese does them, where you actually like the guys and you want to ride with them.
Right, that's what's compelling, is you make it, there's charisma, and he doesn't have any charisma other than using it as a device to scare people.
Yeah.
Like the dinner sequence. He has a dinner sequence where he basically tries to scare one of the FBI agents.
That's the way the movie should have started. Why you could have went the Batman Begins route, and where you kind of say you're in the present, but you're also going back to the past to see how he got.
There was something
things.
too straightforward about the script.
Yeah.
It didn't work well with me. And for me, like a film like this needs either narration or you need to pick a person and stay with them. You can't start with one of his henchmen and then go to some other storyline with some other guy. Like, it just needs a streamlined point of view.
Yeah, it was sloppy. You could tell it was just done really quickly.
Character motivations didn't make sense. It's like scenes were cut out. It just didn't feel right to me.
Direction was whack. Like the Peter Sarsgaard, we have to say with Peter Sarsgaard, amazing performance. Even though it was a wasted character,
he was on screen for 6 minutes maybe.
We didn't need him in the movie.
No,
we really didn't need him.
But he was awesome.
He was awesome.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I agree. That's also a very big disappointment. That being said, what was your surprise of the summer season.
All right, I'll kick things off. I actually I'm kind of looking forward to this discussion. Yeah. I think it'll lead to a bit of a battle of sorts. Okay, so I could have said Ex Machina because I had no intention, like no preconceived notions of what that film's gonna be about.
Yep.
Also, the marketing for that movie was kind of confusing. I don't think they knew what they wanted to sell it as, and it ended up being much better than they were showing it to be.
Yeah.
So that's my honorable mention for this category. But my pick is actually The Visit, M. Night Shyamalan's low-budget horror fun film. And the reason why I have to go with this film is because there's actually a few reasons. I've been a self-described M. Night Shyamalan fan since like I was.
I think you and I agree. Yeah.
You know, I think I even gave like. I kind of fought for The Happening when that movie was awful. Because, and I will say, there's a reason why I'm bringing it up, so please don't, like, hate mail me, is that I kept telling people to watch it as a comedy of sort of farce of, like, the 1950s horror films. Yeah. Which he did not intend to do, which is, that's irrelevant. Sometimes you can't do what the director intended. Like, you have to go with what you see. And what I saw was a comedy. That's what he did with this movie. He decided, you know, I kind of had some people telling me that movie was funny. I didn't mean for it to be funny, so why don't I make one that actually is hilarious? Yeah. I loved The Visit. It's one of those things where I don't think it needs to go into discussion. It's a terrifying story of a brother and sister who are sent to live with their grandparents, and then shit goes down. Yeah. So that's enough to know what the premise is. It's $5 million to make. It is, by percentages, the most successful movie he's ever made. Yeah. Because they have $50 million in profit right now. Yeah. That's 10 times the budget, which is, I think, Sixth Sense made 7 times the budget back at a $40 million budget.
That's right.
I mean, it made a ton of money, but this movie's technically the most successful. First of all, Universal is on fire. It's another hit for Universal Studios this year. Back to the point, found footage doesn't usually work for me, but in this case, it works perfectly. Yeah. Because you're already stuck at the point of view of these kids, so why not strap cameras to them? Yeah. Like, you're going to be sitting here only seeing what they can see, so instead of putting, like, omniscient cameras in the room that just take you out of the sequence, just make it seem like they're the ones shooting it. It works, because I felt like that 16-year-old girl in the movie. She was sort of pretentious and a film snob, and that's exactly who I was as a kid. So, like, I was like, oh, I hate her. I relate to her. Like, I was having such a hard time with that character, but for all the right reasons. Yeah. I think the casting was perfect. Yes. So the kids aside, the grandparents were sympathetic, creepy, funny, relatable, and terrifying all at the same time.
They were terrific.
I have no idea how they did that. Yeah. I don't know if I should credit Shyamalan, if I should credit the casting director, the actors, all three. I have no idea, but I loved them in this movie. Yeah. I've never seen them before. I have no idea who they are. No. But they were awesome.
Those kids were so awesome.
And the kids were great. The boy,
kids were so awesome.
I've seen the boy in that Steve Carell terrible, no good, Rotten Day movie or whatever it's called, and he was very charismatic in that movie. Yeah. So I'm like, this kid's got some potential. And then when I saw he was in this, I'm like, oh, he's gonna be so good. And then he's rapping and stuff. And the shtick, some of the shtick actually worked for me. Like the female, they did like the female singers being the curse words in exchange instead of doing. To me, it was hilarious. Like he's like Rihanna, like he's just cursing, but he's not. It's some of the shtick that doesn't work with Shyamalan movies worked with this movie. Yeah. And I loved it, and I will not apologize for it. Yeah. And is there a twist? Yes. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
If you haven't seen it, go see it, man. It's a fun movie. It's Halloween season. Go watch a scary movie.
It's hilarious. Yeah. Like, you laugh as you're getting scared, which doesn't... Usually it's like, after you get scared, you laugh, but you're just, like, giggling the whole time. I love that freaking movie. That is my biggest surprise of the summer.
My biggest surprise, and by the way, I was there. That was the first movie we saw when you got back from the US Open.
You were skeptical, and you were
I was very skeptical. I'm like, I don't need to see this movie. But then, like, after, I'm glad I did. Because I was just like, it was fun. It was exactly that.
We walked out and he's like, all right, that was good. I'm like, yes, I got him on one.
Because this is I'm a big hater. Like,
no, you're healthily skeptical. It's a good thing to have.
It's an unhealthy habit. To be healthily skeptical. I'll say this. My biggest surprise... I really wanted to pick American Ultra. It's a movie that literally nobody saw.
Okay, good honorable mention, though. It's a good honorable mention.
American Ultra was a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it, watch it on Blu-ray. Mm-hmm. Don't have to be high to watch it, even though it plays on the whole high thing. It's kind of like Pineapple Express. It's very much like that.
Fair enough.
But with much better performances.
Okay.
And Walter Goggins steals the movie. But you reminded me of this, and this is a movie that you dragged me to watch as well.
I did. I'll take some credit for it.
It was another Blumhouse hit, The Gift, with Joel Edgerton.
Such a good choice.
I was actually
mad that I hadn't thought of it when
I remember we were going through the movies, and I was like, all right, they're in the summer, and I'm like, shit, The Gift!
I was like, no!
And I was like, I can't pick American Ultra now. I'm like, that one literally, I walked out of that theater, and I was just like, it really, like, I remember you looked at me, I had the same reaction, like, Adrian, what'd you think? And I was just like, I'm like, yeah, you know what, it was good. It was good. It was real good, all right?
But packed into 2 good ones.
It was, and I kind of like this, when we both, and I feel like this is Blumhouse's, the production company. This is their thing. Yeah. It's like you pull out movies that you don't expect to be good because it looks so, like, not cheap, but it looks so, like, not very over the top budget. Yeah. And then
they presented it in a weird way.
Yeah, and it's like if you haven't seen it, like, the marketing campaign for it all was kind of like, I saw it and I was like, oh, it's a Lifetime movie, so only middle-aged people that they live at home all damn day.
But it's funny because some people thought it was gonna be like a slasher film, like The Strangers. So I have no idea what the advertising was.
And then I watched it and it was just like
so good.
I was like, Joel Edgerton, first of all,
solid director.
He should direct his own Wolverine movie, man. I already cast him, dude. Like, go ahead and do it.
DC should get on that, honestly.
And I just was really taken aback by it. The casting, I don't care if he had a hand in casting or not. They nailed it. Jason Bateman as pretty much the villain of the movie was so right.
It's every character he's ever played dialed up to 11 and just thrown in with a spice of creepy, and you're like,
it was a very well executed movie. So and I walked away. I was just like, thumbs up, my friend.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. Absolutely. But this kind of like, just to kind of like transition, I think this is a little fun little discussion we could have. The Blumhouse battle.
Okay.
Because The Visit was produced by Blumhouse, as was The Gift. We both saw them together. Which one do you think was better?
Okay. I mean...
You're wrong.
Okay, no. I mean, I will argue in favor of The Visit just because, for me, it exceeded... Like, it's one thing to make a great first impression, like Edgerton did. It's another thing completely to already have a negative perception follow you and to still exceed those negative perceptions.
Yeah.
So I feel like when you set the bar as, like, the bar is not even there and Edgerton exceeds it because no one knew what the hell he was capable of.
Yeah.
I mean... Shyamalan's bar was like in the basement along with the creepy shit in this movie, and he just jumped over the roof with it. Like considering like the stuff that he, it's not a perfect movie, but considering the crap he'd been making for the last few years, I have to argue that is the better example of like a exceeding expectations fun movie.
Yeah.
But as a film that's like gonna get buzz in a few months for Oscar bait, I think The Gift is. I will say this, and then I'll just let it stand and I'll hear your opinion.
Yeah.
Is that they're both very Hitchcock.
Yes.
One was deemed the next Hitchcock 15 years ago and just fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
The other one has made essentially the best Hitchcock film since maybe Vertigo. Like, I mean, it honestly is like one of the best thrillers. Rosemary's Baby is probably similar to that in the way that it's just like nothing's really happening, but everything's happening.
Yeah.
That's so hard to do that I have to give it to The Gift, but they're both very similar directors in theory.
That's
they're
high
doing
praise.
things really differently.
I will say this. I say, like, first I'm going to say I'm picking The Gift.
Understandable.
Yeah, I'm picking The Gift because obviously it really surprised me. Yeah. Because I really, like I said before, I was expecting a Lifetime movie and it was more than that.
Right.
The reason I'm not going to pick The Visit was because it was a very, very just well done film. It was just like, hey, good job, you did it. But the reason, it's a big reason is because it's M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
It's like saying, oh, Jay Cutler, high five for executing a screen pass.
Right, exactly. The bar has been so low for so long. It's just like, oh,
that's why, like, for me, it's just like, oh, you really ran the play. You ran the play.
Yeah, exactly.
You stuck to the script.
True. It's true. It is a little patronizing to be like, look at you, kid.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to say this, like, hats off to you, man. Good job. You did a really, really great job.
Yeah.
That being said, I just think the fact that Joel Edgerton, a first-time director, not only acted in his movie, but, like, directed great performances
for real.
In his movie.
Absolutely.
Was awesome. It really surprised the hell out of me. Blumhouse, I hate you. Please fund my movie, even though I don't have one technically.
Just write a script that only requires like $20 to $30 million budget.
I'll bring my own camera. Hell, just show up. Give me $5 and I'll do it, and I'll give you back whatever money.
You'll make 100, but hey, that's 20 times the profit.
I'm just like, hey man, but Blumhouse, you're nailing it.
They're doing it.
Was my surprise of the summer. Also with a small hint of American Ultra.
Yep.
Please check it out. Also, Man from U.N.C.L.E. was a lot of fun.
And I would say The Visit with a little dose of Ex Machina if you haven't checked it out.
Ex Machina is awesome. So, but we are going to transition to what's coming in the future. We're moving past from the past.
Yes, we are.
And we're moving towards the future.
That sort of made sense.
That made sense.
Yeah, it made perfect sense. I wasn't actually paying attention.
But we're moving towards the future. Let's
do it.
All right, but we're going to talk about, this is our trailer segment. We're going to break down recent trailers that we found very interesting.
Yes.
And we're going to get through them really quickly.
Okay.
So the first one, I'm going to throw to you, Miss JP Lee.
Let's do it.
Krampus.
I am so excited for this movie.
Oh.
I love movies that kind of bend the genre of holiday seasons.
Yes.
So, like, The Nightmare Before Christmas, films that, like, you don't expect them to do what they do, and then you're like, oh, this is awesome, I feel a different way about the holiday now. This movie could be the next one to do that. The trailer looks hysterical. For me, obviously, based on The Visit, I need my scary movies to make me laugh, too.
Yeah.
Unless you're Guillermo del Toro, in which case, I'm okay with del Toro scaring the living crap out of me. That's fine, because he's really good at that. Yeah. But in this case, like, it just looks hilarious. I loved the American Dad Krampus references, like, in those episodes. Yeah. So the fact that there's a feature-length film about Krampus, I don't know the extent of the relation. I don't know about Krampus enough to say, like, I know it's from American Dad. I have no idea. Yeah. I'm just excited that I knew something culturally relevant. I'm like, yes! I'm excited for Krampus!
It looks really... This is the thing. I saw it, and again, like, I don't know anything about Krampus.
Jump scare.
So basically what it is, it's a boy who has a bad Christmas, ends up accidentally summoning a Christmas demon to his family's home.
How is that not the most incredible premise of it?
That's what? Roll out the Oscars now.
It's like Evil Dead with Christmas lights.
Exactly. Like, that's the thing. And you nailed it, too. Like the funnest... Like, scary movies are supposed to be also fun.
Have to be.
That's supposed to be fun. Like, let's rip on holidays. It was the greatest premise ever invented. Halloween, Black Christmas. Now, and there was a the joke trailer made in Grindhouse for Tarantino. It was Thanksgiving. It's like, that's what we want. We want
every Shane Black movie is
every Shane Black is a Christmas one. On. So it's like it looks like fun. Adam Scott's in it. Toni Collette, who's a really when you see her, you know who she is.
That validated it for me. I'm like, Toni Collette is she's badass. Awesome. So if she's in this, it's got to be pretty good.
So I look forward to it. It looks really awesome.
I'm so excited.
Check out the trailer if you haven't seen it. So excited. Next trailer, The Jungle Book.
All right.
By Jonathan Favreau.
I will put my 2 cents in real quick. The Jungle Book, the original live action from like 1995 or something like that with Sam Neill. I watched that because Sam Neill was in it.
Oh, yeah,
as a kid, I loved Sam Neill. That movie is absolute crap, but I watched it as a kid. So if I was willing to watch that multiple times, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Suddenly my phone literally came on. I didn't know what I was doing. Sorry, but continue.
He's losing it. If I was willing to watch the Sam Neill version of The Jungle Book, which was subpar to be nice, I am really excited about this. I feel like the fact that they're maybe focusing a little more on the animals is kind of intriguing, especially now that the technology's caught up with it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I wanted to mention. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. Like, when you watch this trailer, here's director Jon Favreau, who we might recognize from the man who started the Marvel Universe with Iron Man.
Yep.
He went out and said, like, someone asked him at D23, he's like, hey, which jungle did you shoot in? He's like, we didn't. That was literally a big-ass green screen up in the studio lot. Yep, it was all on green screen. Everything is created through technology. It looks so real. It looks amazing. He even's been on records like this is the most advanced CGI ever put on film. It looks amazing, and the talent behind the voices for the animals is amazing. Idris Elba as Shere Khan, Bill Murray as Baloo, Ben Kingsley as Bagheera. I can't even pronounce it. Christopher Walken as Quentin Louis. Like, good guy, and like.
And I didn't know Scarlett Johansson.
And Scarlett Johansson.
She's in the trailer,
she
and
I
did not
like,
realize it was her. And Jonathan, my husband, was like, you love her. Like, you love the movie Her. How did you not know she was the voice? I'm like, I wasn't paying attention.
It looks exciting. It's exciting. It looks awesome. I cannot wait. But the next trailer is my favorite one that we've seen. It's Scouts versus Zombies.
Give your 2 cents.
Yes. Or, as it's known as a byline title, is a Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse.
So excited.
This movie basically, like, the premise is 3 scouts on the eve of their last campout discover the true meaning of friendship when they attempt to save their town from a zombie outbreak. And that's the thing. You hear that, you're like, that sounds ridiculous. But then you watch the trailer, and it stars the freaking badass Ty Sheridan, who's playing Cyclops in the next X-Men movie. Oh, yes. That's why I noticed this.
I was like,
that's the thing. I was on Twitter because I wasn't gonna share it. Like, I always man the Twitter. The Twitter account. I manned the Twitter. I manned the Twitter account, and I saw this one. And I saw, oh, that's Ty Sheridan. That's the new Cyclops. I want to see what it is. I press play, and it looks like one of those fun, like this was like Evil Dead, but Army of Darkness.
Yeah,
Evil Dead,
no, for sure.
Where these kids are like, oh, let's go hang out, and they see like the strip club is empty, and it's like, oh, let's go inside. There's no bouncer. They go in, and the stripper is on the pole, and they're like, yeah, this is awesome.
You're like, is zombie apocalypse starting a strip club? Oh my god!
It's like, wait a second, what's going on here? And then all of a sudden she like bends backwards, breaks her back, but still is like all of a sudden like starts crawling towards her. I'm like, wait a second, what the hell? Happening? I'm like, oh my god, this is creepy. So then they try to stab her with one of one of the taps from the beer from the bar, and then they stab her, and all of a sudden the blood splatters on them because of the tap. And I'm just like, oh god, the faucet, no! It looks like a fun movie, and like the reason I'm excited is because Ty Sheridan looks like the leader Cyclops we've been waiting for X-Men. So I cannot wait to see him.
It definitely feels like a Shaun of the Dead meets Zombieland kind of thing, where like they
both,
that's
a good one. Yeah.
I feel like they're gonna push the envelope in both versions. Like I want them to go like 1 or 2 steps further than either of those movies did.
Oh my god, it looks like fun.
Oh, I'm so excited.
But the next one is probably the one that's generating the most buzz recently.
It's the most respectable of the four.
I remember I rushed in, and when this trailer came out, I rushed in and I was like, dude, you need to check this out. Look who's in it and look who made it. Yeah. It's The Big Short. I want you to go first.
Okay, so I tried 2 different things. So you told me who was in it.
Yeah.
And I was watching the trailer and I'm like, holy crap, like this is a solid cast. You can get into the names in a sec.
Oh yeah.
But then I showed a friend of ours and I didn't tell her who was in it just to see if like I was allowing those preconceptions.
Yeah.
And she watched it and she's like, oh, he's in it? He's in it? Like, she was freaking out. She was like, this looks incredible.
Yeah.
It felt like it was one of those movies that's, like, not going to be as fun as The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
But still be, like, I don't know. It's still going to have a really good message and be, like, just go into the premise of it, because I'm really excited about this movie.
Alright, The Big Short. This is the synopsis. 4 outsiders in the world of high finance who predicted the credit and housing bubble collapse of the mid-2000s decide to take on the big banks for their lack of foresight and greed. And the cast.
Ugh, this is insane.
Alright, hold on to your butts. Brad Pitt, Christian Bale, Karen Gillan, Selena Gomez, Marissa Tomei, Ryan Gosling, Steve Carell, Melissa Leo, Rafe Spall. Like, dude, like,
it's a
holy
who's
crap.
who of just talented people.
And who directed it? Adam McKay.
That is...
Adam McKay of Anchorman.
Step Brothers.
Of Step Brothers. Of Talladega Nights, Ricky Bobby.
It doesn't make sense to me, because I feel like half of his movies are always like, I have a rough outline of a script. Ad-lib! Like, I'm trying to see how he's going to make this, it seems to be a fairly strict script, kind of his own thing.
And it's one of those things where, like, if you follow Adam McKay on social media, he's one of those guys that he's very involved when it comes to what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
So it's like, you're kind of surprised, like, oh, this guy who made, this movies, you can tell, like, he's slowly starting to get into that serious kind of comedy, where even in the other guys, there were hints of it, when he kept talking about, like, the Federal Reserve and all this stuff, and there were jokes, and it's like, jokes that went over my head, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what if he just goes straight and did, like, a serious movie with comedy behind it.
Yeah.
This feels very much like a Thank You for Smoking kind of movie.
Which I love.
And that, when you watch the trailer and you see Christian Bale in, realistically speaking, his first comedy. Now, you could count American Psycho, but that's more of like a very...
Like a manic.
Yeah, a very manic comedy. And then you watch this one, you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
This is something I've never seen before. And not only that, but you get this cast who are pretty much all the heavy hitters of Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
And it's just good to see Christian Bale back in a movie to be excited about again.
I like seeing Bale in that kind of role. I love seeing Steve Carell go into a sort of comedic, dramatic role, because for him, I feel like he had to push himself away from comedy for a while to like be legitimized. And
to
now
kind of give people a break from seeing him all
and
the
I
time.
feel like he's moving back to the middle, which is interesting. I love the dramedy kind of films, like the Reitman films, like Up in the Air, like you said, Thank You for Smoking.
This one could be very much like Up in the Air.
I love that, because life is that. Like, there is no such thing as just like a hard drama or hard comedy. This just seems very realistic, but also just enough of a farce to be like, this would be hilarious if it wasn't so depressing, but it's still hilarious. Like
you mentioned it yourself. Like, I remember, like, to close up on this, it's like you mentioned it when we watched the trailer. It's like, this looks like a David O. Russell movie.
It did.
But
it's
really done by somebody that you would never expect to do the movie like that.
Which is refreshing, because David Russell's been kind of exposed a lot the last few years, so it's fresh.
So I'm excited. I saw the trailer. I can't wait. It's supposed to be out this December. So I can't
December's
wait.
pretty loaded.
December's pretty loaded. So this could be a sleeper Oscar movie. Very sleeper.
Speaking of, I kind of sort of wrapping up for the show. I don't know if we have too much else to talk about, but one thing I do
have a new shirt. Let's talk about that.
We're skipping that. But I do want to discuss is that next week we are going to launch into an Oscar season preview episode.
Yes.
Which I've been saying since our show has started, is sort of my favorite time of year. For me, Christmas starts in like late September, early October when these movies start to come out, so I am incredibly excited. We'll get into, I would say, probably the best picture contenders, best actor contenders, best actress contenders. Maybe we'll nerd out and pick some of the more technical categories that I feel like you and I would love to talk about, especially like cinematography, maybe editing, definitely music, because John Williams has some cool comebacks coming down his way. So.
And not only that, but like, can't forget Star Wars is coming.
Exactly.
But we're going to talk about all that next week.
So stay tuned, please.
Please stay tuned. We're glad you guys are back with us. Please continue to man the page. If you want the latest movie news, please continue to follow us. You guys have been. I've seen the traffic. I know what you guys like now. and I'm not gonna listen to you.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna keep doing what
we're doing. I'm gonna keep posting stuff that you don't like.
He's stubborn. We'll get over it. Yeah. We'll figure it out.
But thank you guys for joining us. I'm glad to be back.
I'm glad to be back too, and we'll check you out next week and see you when the credits roll.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
It's been forever since I've said that.